So what I sold this year versus last year at art fairs, I'm going to share my exact sales numbers directly from my Square dashboard so you can see the sales trends over time in my art business. Why I'm doing this is that I make decisions on how I book shows in the future, and then also what types of products and things I need to double down on for selling in my art booth, or maybe even stop selling in my booth based upon actual numbers and real data, not speculation. So I want to show you how I'm doing this so that way you can do this in your art business and make more informed decisions about what direction to head with your business next year. So now we are in my Square dashboard and you can see my gross sales. This year is the darker blue. Last year is the lighter blue. But one thing that you can tell right off the bat, this year I made $49,107 in total sales from all the art fairs I did. And last year I made $39,922. So my sales were up 23.01% this year from last year. And this is in a bad economy because this year's economy seems to be worse than last year's, at least to me. I don't know if you're feeling that in your business at all, but I think people have less money to spend this year than they did last year. And this is revealed when you look down here a little bit further into my average total sale. You can see my average total sale this year was $36.98, whereas last year my average total sale was $40.44. This means that my average order value or average total sale went down by 8.56%. And this makes a difference over time when you're thinking about how many sales you're making in your booth. And real quick, let's just go down here and look at order count. You can see how many total sales I made, not the value of each sale, but just how many total sales. And I've sold 34.4% more sales this year than I did last year. With all of that said, I'm sure the question in your mind is, how did I make 23% more sales this year than I did last year? And the big takeaway here is that this year I did more art fairs than last year. I did 10 shows this year, and in 2024 I only did 8. It's easy to increase the amount of money that you make each year by just adding a few more shows. And often this is what I do when I'm just trying to bump up my income level a little bit. And I did it this year because I knew the economy was going through a lot of things and I didn't know if some of the shows that I normally do were going to perform as well as I needed them to. So I went ahead and padded my schedule with an extra couple shows just to make sure that I would have the income that I needed. Still, there's more we can learn from the data, so let's get back into it. Next, we're going to look at the item sales that I made all this year, so that way we can see exactly what sold. And I have it so that it's showing what sold the most. And you can see here my small prints. I sold 2,199 small prints throughout the entire year. So this was $37,761 worth of small 8.5 by 11 size prints. This is the bread and butter of my business. I always tell you all that in my videos, and it is because it's very clearly shown here. I'm selling so many more small prints than anything else. You can see up here at the top, it lists my 5 best-selling items. So we have the small prints. The next is my canvas prints for $6,482 worth. Then large prints, these are 16 by 20 inch prints that are unframed. These are $2,235 worth. And then original paintings are $1,894 worth. And then medium-sized prints, this was a new thing I offered this year. They are anywhere from 12 by 16 to down to 11 by 14 size prints. And these were $616 worth of sales. Now you can see that I'm not selling very many original paintings this year, selling mostly small prints. Now let's go over here. This is what I sold in 2024. So you can see also my small prints are my #1 selling item, but I only sold $29,143 worth of small prints. Then my canvas prints, I actually sold a little more of last year versus this year, and I sold $7,189 worth of canvas prints. Then I have a custom amount. Sometimes I will give deals to people while I'm at shows, and then I will enter it in as a custom amount. amount. So this could have been original paintings. It could have been canvas prints that I discounted. I just don't know. And I wish I would have taken more care in entering my data in 2024. So that way I would have an exact understanding of what these were, because I don't really know what it is. And this year I did a better job of making sure if I was giving somebody a discount on a particular item, that I still categorized it and whether it was like an original painting or a print, so that way I would know. So I don't know what these were, but I did make $1,277 worth of large print sales. And then my original paintings, I only sold $499 worth of original paintings, which is pretty awful, honestly, for an entire year of art fairs. But like I said, some of those could have been in this custom amount category. So I'm sure I sold more than only $500 worth of paintings the entire year at shows, but I don't know. But this is all I have data to support. I also want to go back here to 2025 again and just take a look at what size of canvases I sold, because this I think is really revealing in the data. So I sold 82 total canvas prints this year, but 48 of them were 11 by 14. These are my smallest size canvas prints, and 15 of them were 16 by 20 size. And then 3 of them were 24 by 30 size. Now, some of them say custom here. These were things that were perhaps not categorized within these sizes, or discounts that I gave people at shows, but they still were canvas prints. Oftentimes when I give discounts, it's on a bigger piece. So I doubt these were 11 by 14 size. They were probably a 24 by 30. But that's just me guessing. I wish I would have kept a little bit more specific records on that within my checkout at Square, so that I would know exactly which canvases I sold. Very similar to the original paintings of last year, so I should have had a little bit better data. But this does show us something, because let's look at the canvases from 2024 that I sold. It's pretty cool because I sold exactly the same number of total canvas prints this year as I did last year, because it's 82, which is kind of a luck, I think. It wasn't anything particular that I did that created that, but I sold 40 of my smaller canvases and then 28 of my 16 by 20 canvases. So when we're comparing what I made in 2025 versus 2024, I only sold 15 of the 16 by 20 canvases this year versus 28 last year. And I gotta say, this year at shows, I definitely felt that I wasn't selling as many of my 16 by 20 canvases as I had in prior years. What I noticed is that people were coming into my booth this year and buying just a single print a lot more often than they were buying something that was a higher priced item or a higher priced sale, like my buy 3 get a 4th print free deal that I usually always run in my booth. This often elevates my average order value or average total sale. But when I don't get those people doing the buy 3 get the 1 free or getting something off of the wall of my booth very often, then my total sales value goes down. And that's what happened this year. I think this is really economy driven. People don't seem to have as much money when they are coming into my art booth this year as they did last year to spend. I also want to emphasize that these are my gross sales numbers, not what I actually profited, not my net sales. And this is an important distinction to make, because I actually profited less this year, even though I had higher numbers of sales than I did in 2024. And here's why. Basically, my hotel costs went up more, my labor cost went up, my cost of goods sold didn't go up that much. You would think it probably did because of all the tariffs and everything, but I was figuring out this whole year lots of creative ways to keep my product cost down. But everything else went up. I mean, hotels especially are expensive. Plus, every year I pick 1 or 2 wild card shows to try out in new areas where I think I will probably make good sales. And this year, my picks of my wild card shows were just awful. I did profit from them, but I didn't profit as much as I should for shows that were so expensive to do. But that's how it is when you pick a show that's a gamble. I mean, that's what the essential meaning of a wild card show for me is something that I've never tried, but I think will be good. It's worth betting on. But I don't fill my schedule with all shows like that. I only do a few. So that way I minimize my financial risk. Because if you think about it, if every show costs anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 to do, do, depending on how far you're traveling and the cost of the booth fees and maybe your labor, everything all involved. If you book a dozen shows and they're all like your best guess and you've never done any of them before, you could lose a lot of money if you do all those shows and they all turn out to be duds. So that's why I think it's good, especially when you're a beginner, to ease yourself into figuring out your art fair schedule. Do local shows where they're low cost, and that way if you don't make money at them, you're not losing very much. And maybe pick 1 or 2 travel shows for your first year, like they're your wildcard shows, right? And then after that, if you do well at those shows, keep doing that same show if you can get in the next year, but then also apply to a couple of new shows. That way you're building your travel show schedule slowly over time, so that way you're not risking losing as much money. I mean, that's what I do at least, and that's what's worked for me over the years. So because of the way the economy has been and just how this year my picks of the wildcard shows were duds, next year I'm not going to do any wildcard shows. I'm only going to do the shows that I know are really good for me. I'm also going to try to figure out a way to elevate my average order value, because I know when people are coming into my booth to shop, if I can get them to buy a little bit more than that one single print, then this is going to help me make more money. And perhaps that way next year I won't drop down another 8 or 10% in my average order value if, let's say, the economy still stays bad and it's difficult and people don't have too much money to spend. Go to Reports once you log into your Square dashboard, and then go to Sales Trends. Now by default, this has my last search saved in here, where we're looking at this year's sales versus last year. But if you don't see that, all you have to do is go in here and select this year and then versus last year or whatever other year you want to compare them to. And then over here, you can select your different metrics. So for your gross sales, which is your total sales, and then the average total sales, and then how many sales you actually made. And then you can view them as a bar or line graph. I just think the bar graph is a little bit easier to see and understand. And if you're just thinking about starting doing art fairs and you're wanting to try to save some money on supplies, I have a video. You should check it out here. It's going to save you lots on your art fair booth setup. All right, thank you so much for watching. Hope this helps. See you next time.